I found the ultrasound on my billionaire husband's phone 1 week before Christmas. His mistress was pregnant, and I couldn't expose her, because none of our 3 children were his either. 12 years, 3 pregnancies, 1 lie, compounding in silence. The test kit sat in my drawer for a decade. Insurance I never opened. Evidence I could never afford to create. I looked at myself in the mirror, at the woman I'd become to survive. And I understood, if she exposed him, someone would start asking questions about DNA. My children would lose their inheritance, their name, everything I'd given them. So I made the call. I'd spent 12 years protecting the lie. I wasn't going to let some Athens mistress burn it down. In the next hour, you'll discover what happens when 2 women deceive the same billionaire, and the matriarch who orchestrated them both. This is a story about survival, sacrifice, and the lies we tell to protect what we love. Welcome to American Billionaire Tales. 3 hours earlier, I was a wife packing her husband's suitcase. The bedroom was quiet, December light falling through tall windows onto silk bedding. Alexandros' Louis Vuitton garment bag lay open on the chaise, half filled with cashmere sweaters and Italian dress shirts for the annual Mykonos Christmas. I folded his clothes the way he liked them, tissue paper between layers, collars stiffened with cardboard inserts. 12 years of marriage teaches you a man's preferences. His favorite charcoal Xenia, the navy turtleneck his mother gave him, the cufflinks from his father's estate. My hands found the hidden pocket. Every suitcase has one. A zipper within a zipper, designed for passports, jewelry, things worth protecting. I'd never searched it before. Why would I? I trusted my husband. I trusted my husband the way I trusted the floor beneath my feet. The phone was black, prepaid, no case, no personalization. The kind of phone that exists to disappear. I pressed the power button. The screen bloomed blue in my palm. 3 years of messages. I scrolled. Dinner reservations in Athens, hotel confirmations in Santorini, photos I made myself look at, his hand on a bare shoulder, champagne glasses clinking, the specific angle of intimacy. Her name was Dimitra, 29, PR executive at Stavridis Maritime, his employee, his lover, his secret. The messages were worse than the photos. When you leave her, we can finally be real. The baby changes everything. You said so yourself. Tell her by New Year, or I will. Baby. I read the word 3 times before it registered. Before I scrolled up and found the ultrasound, that gray blur of cells that would grow into a person. A person with Alexandros' eyes, his name, his inheritance. Unless I stopped it. My first instinct was rage. The specific rage of a woman replaced, discarded, made redundant by someone younger and more fertile. But rage is expensive. Rage makes you stupid. I sat on the edge of our bed, our $40,000 Heston's mattress, our silk sheets, our ancestral portraits watching, and I made myself think. Dimitra wanted acknowledgement. She wanted Alexandros to leave me, claim the child, give her legitimacy. And if he refused? She'd tell me everything, force my hand, make me the villain who either accepts or explodes. Except any paternity claim would require DNA testing. My children. Sophia, 10. Marcus, 7. Leo, 4. 3 miracles I'd given Alexandros when doctors said he couldn't father children. 3 perfect Stavridis heirs. 3 children who weren't his. I stared at the ultrasound on the screen, at the woman threatening to expose my husband's affair, and I understood something that made my blood run cold. If Dimitra forced a DNA test on her child, someone, Alexandros, his lawyers, his mother, would eventually wonder about mine. The mistress wasn't just threatening my marriage. She was threatening to unravel everything I'd built. I learned to calculate before I learned to love. My mother taught me that. Helena Castellanos, single mother, 3 jobs, queen's apartment with a view of the elevated train. She'd been beautiful once, Greek immigrant beauty, the kind that makes men promise things they can't deliver. My father promised her everything. Then he went back to his real family in Thessaloniki and left her with nothing but me. She died at 54, worn out, used up. I was 23, watching her casket lower into Queen's soil, and I swore I would never be disposable. Alexandros found me 2 years later, or rather, his mother found me. I was working at Christie's, the Greek antiquities department, entry-level, beautiful and ambitious, and fluent in his mother tongue. Thalia Stavridis needed someone to authenticate a collection. She sent her son. He wasn't handsome in the obvious way, 52 now, but 40 then, silver already threading through dark hair, jaw too strong, brow too heavy. But when he looked at me, I saw something I recognized. Hunger. The specific hunger of a man who's been told he can have everything except the one thing he actually wants. I didn't know then what that thing was. We married 8 months later. The wedding was in Mykonos, 300 guests, a Virawang gown that cost more than my mother's apartment. I became Helena Stavridis. I became untouchable. And then, the doctors told us he couldn't give me children. Alexandros never knew. Thalia made sure of that. She'd hidden his diagnosis since he was 28, afraid it would break him. The family doctor was on retainer. The records were sealed. And when I discovered the truth 6 months into our marriage, she sat me down in her Mykonos study and told me exactly what my options were. She said the family needed heirs. She said I was clever enough to provide them. I could have left, exposed the lie, taken my settlement, started over. But starting over meant becoming my mother. Beautiful once, discarded eventually, dying exhausted in a 2-bedroom walk-up. So I made a different choice. His name was Marco Alonso. I met him at a wine auction in Buenos Aires. Alexandros was closing a shipping deal, I was bored at a reception, and Marco was the most alive man I'd ever seen. Argentine, vineyard owner, dark curling hair and eyes that laughed before his mouth did. We had 3 weeks. 3 weeks of feeling chosen instead of acquired. 3 weeks of a man who wanted me, not what I represented. 3 weeks that gave me Sophia. I went. Back to him twice more over the next 6 years. For Marcus. For Leo. Each time I told myself it was necessary, strategic, the cost of keeping everything I'd built. I never told Marco about the children. He thinks they're Alexandros's. Everyone thinks they're Alexandros's. And now some Athens mistress was going to tear that apart. I looked at the photos on my dresser, my children's faces, their father's eyes, Marco's eyes, looking back at me from behind Stavridis frames. I pulled out the DNA kit, the one I'd bought years ago just in case. Insurance I'd never opened because opening it meant creating evidence. But maybe I'd need a different kind of insurance now. I needed to go to Athens. I needed to handle this myself. Alexandros came home at 6. I heard him in the foyer. The specific weight of his footsteps, the rustle of cashmere being handed to Maria, our housekeeper. I was ready. I'd put the phone back in his suitcase exactly where I'd found it, re-zipped the hidden pocket, smoothed every wrinkle from the cashmere. By the time he walked into the living room, I was on the sofa with a glass of Sancerre, looking every inch the wife he expected. "Darling," he kissed my forehead, the greeting of a man who's already kissed someone else today. "Packing's done?" "All finished," I smiled. "You'll look wonderful in Mykonos." He didn't notice. He never noticed. 12 years of marriage, and he still couldn't read my face when I was lying, which was fortunate, since I'd been lying since the beginning. "I need to run to Paris," I said. "Caroline's having a crisis with the spring line, fabric suppliers. I'll be back in 2 days." Caroline Laurent, my alibi of choice. French, fashion industry, perpetually dramatic. Alexandros had never liked her, which meant he'd never call her. He waved a hand. "Take the jet." I said I'd booked commercial, less conspicuous for a quick trip. Commercial. As if I'd ever fly commercial again. But the family jet logged flight plans, crew talked, and where I was going, I needed no witnesses. I booked a charter through a shell company, paid cash, left no trail. The flight to Athens was 7 hours. 7 hours in a leather seat at 40,000 feet, watching clouds pass beneath me, rehearsing what I would say to the woman trying to destroy my life. I'd researched her on the flight from Teterboro. Dimitra Katsaros, 29 years old, University of Athens, communications degree. Joined Stavridis Maritime's PR department 4 years ago, right around the time Alexandros started working late. She was beautiful in the way that made sense. Dark hair, dark eyes, olive skin. Greek in the way I only performed. Young enough to be flattered by attention. Ambitious enough to mistake proximity for love. 3 years. She'd been sleeping with my husband for 3 years, waiting for him to leave me, getting pregnant to force his hand. I almost admired it. She was doing exactly what I would have done, using her body to secure her future, gambling everything on a man's weakness. The difference was timing. I'd gotten there first. Before I'd left, I'd packed one thing I hadn't planned to bring. The DNA kit sat in my carry-on now, still sealed in its blue and white packaging. Evidence I'd never created. Insurance I'd never needed. I told myself it was leverage, something to wave if Dimitra got too aggressive. I can prove your child isn't his either. A bluff, maybe. A threat. But that wasn't quite true. The truth is, I didn't know what I was willing to do yet. I'd protected this lie for 12 years. I'd betrayed my husband, deceived my children, sold my soul for security and status and the promise of never being disposable. What's one more betrayal? The plane descended into Athens at 2 a.m. local time. City lights spread below like scattered diamonds, ancient streets, modern ambition, and somewhere in that grid, a woman who thought she was about to win. She didn't know who she was playing against. The building was new money screaming, glass and chrome, a lobby that looked like a tech startup's fever dream, exposed concrete, Edison bulbs, a reception desk shaped like a wave. Everything designed to announce, "I have arrived. Notice me." I noticed. Dimitra's apartment was on the 14th floor. I'd found the address in Alexandros' phone, saved under D. Work, as if that made it innocent, as if any of this was innocent. The elevator opened onto a hallway that smelled like expensive candles and other people's ambition. Her door was gray, minimalist, a brass 14C, the only ornament. I knocked. She was younger than I'd expected. Not in years, I knew she was 29, but in the way she held herself, uncertain, armored but brittle. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, face bare of makeup, wearing an oversized cashmere cardigan that probably cost 2,000 euros. She looked at me the way a deer looks at headlights. "Hello, Dimitra. I'm Helena Stavridis." Her hand flew to her stomach. Instinct. Protection. The gesture told me everything. She was keeping the baby. She loved it already, and she hadn't expected me to find her first. "Mrs. Stavridis." Her voice was steadier than her eyes. "I wasn't—" "Expecting me?" I walked past her into the apartment without being invited. "No. You were expecting my husband to handle this. But Alexandros doesn't handle things. He pays other people to handle things. And right now, I'm the other people." The apartment was exactly what I'd expected. Open floor plan, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Acropolis, designer furniture that matched but didn't comfort. A life staged for Instagram, lived in solitude. I turned to face her. "You want $5 million, a U.S. visa, and public acknowledgement. You want him to leave me for you." She straightened. Something flickered in her eyes. Not fear now, but recognition. She was calculating too. "I want what I was promised." He promises everyone, Dimitra. It's how he operates. The question is what you're willing to accept instead. I opened my Hermes bag, pulled out an envelope, slid it across her marble kitchen island. $3 million. Wire transfer ready. You take it, you sign an NDA, you disappear to London or Paris or wherever ambitious young women go to reinvent themselves. The baby gets a trust fund, generous, anonymous, no Stavridis name attached. She didn't touch the envelope. "You think this is about money?" "Everything is about money, eventually." "No." She shook her head. "I don't want to be bought off. I want to be acknowledged. I want him to stand next to me and say, 'This is my child. This is real.'" "That's not going to happen." "Then I tell you everything. Every hotel, every message, every promise he made me in the dark. I destroy your perfect little life and let the lawyers sort out the pieces." I should have felt threatened. Instead, I felt something worse. I felt seen. She walked to a sideboard and pulled out a folder. Photographs. She spread them across the counter like tarot cards. Images of my children at their school, at our townhouse, at the Mykonos estate. "Your children," she said, not looking at me. "Beautiful. Sophia, Marcus, Leo. Don't say their names. They don't look like him, you know." She finally met my eyes. "I've studied every photo. Alexandros has those heavy brows, the dark, deep-set eyes. Your children have different eyes. Lighter, warmer, shaped differently." "What exactly are you implying?" "Nothing. Yet." She gathered the photos back into the folder. "But if I'm going to war with you, Mrs. Stavridis, I want to know what weapons I'm working with." Violin note, sustained, 3 seconds, fading to tension. She didn't know, not for certain, but she suspected, and suspicion was enough to destroy me. We stood there, 2 women on opposite sides of a marble island, 2 predators who'd just discovered they were both prey. "You've been planning this for a while." Dimitra slid the folder back into the sideboard. 3 years gives you time to plan." 3 years. I let the words sit. You waited 3 years for a man to leave his wife. And you think I'm the fool? Something cracked in her face. Not anger, something raw. "He told me he loved me." Her voice dropped. The first year he said it every night. The second year, every week. By the third year, it was only when I threatened to leave. That sounds about right. She turned away, busying herself with the kettle. I watched her pour, hands trembling slightly, water spilling onto the counter. This wasn't the calculated adversary I'd prepared for. This was a woman coming apart. You think I'm a homewrecker? She didn't turn around. Some ambitious little whore who seduced your husband for money. The thought crossed my mind. My father had another family. Now she turned. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was hard. His real family in Thessaloniki. Sons. We were his Athens mistake. My mother, me. When he died, they got everything. His name, his money, his business. We got a sympathy card. I said nothing, but I understood. I swore I'd never be invisible like my mother. Dimitra set down a cup of tea I hadn't asked for. When Alexandros noticed me, I thought, finally, someone who would choose me, someone who would stay. He doesn't stay. He acquires. There's a difference. I know that now. She sat across from me at the island. The photographs lay between us like ghosts. I'm pregnant with a man's child who will never acknowledge me. Who probably can't even... She stopped. Can't even what? Dimitra looked at me, really looked. There were rumors, years ago in the Athens office, that he'd had medical issues, fertility issues, hushed up by the family. My stomach dropped, but I held my face perfectly still. Rumors, I said. The office is full of them. Yes. She held my gaze. They usually are. Neither of us said what we both knew, that if those rumors were true, neither of our children were his, that we were both committing the same fraud, that destroying each other meant destroying ourselves. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired. Dimitra's shoulders dropped. The armor fell away, and what was left was just a woman, young, pregnant, terrified. I've spent 3 years performing for a man who was never going to choose me. And now I'm threatening his wife, and she's offering me money, and none of it changes the fact that I'm going to raise this child alone. You could still take the money, disappear. I could. She looked at the envelope, still untouched. But it won't make me real. It won't make any of this count for something. I thought of my mother, dying in Queens, forgotten by the man who'd promised her everything. I thought of myself, 25, desperate, making choices I couldn't undo. We're not enemies, are we? Dimitra shook her head slowly. We're symptoms of the same disease. I picked up my tea. She picked up hers. And for one strange, suspended moment, we were just two women sharing the truth neither of us could speak aloud. That doesn't mean I won't destroy you if I have to. I know. She almost smiled. Same. I landed at Teterboro at 4 a.m. Eastern, December 21st. 4 days until Christmas. The car was waiting. Different driver, different company, same discretion. I slid into the back seat and let the leather absorb me. 20 hours of travel, one inconclusive confrontation, and the sick feeling that I'd accomplished nothing. Dimitra hadn't taken the money. She hadn't backed down. All I'd done was show her my cards. I'd left her apartment with the envelope still on the counter, a silent insult or a deferred decision. I couldn't tell which. We'd exchanged numbers, not as allies, as adversaries who might need to negotiate. The townhouse was dark when I arrived, staff off for the night. Alexandros, already in Mykonos, preparing the estate for Christmas. I was supposed to fly out with the children tomorrow. I climbed the stairs in the dark, too tired to turn on lights. The bedroom door was open, the bed unmade. Maria didn't work Mondays. My phone. 3 missed calls from Alexandros, 2 from an Athens number I didn't recognize, and 1 text from a contact I'd saved years ago but never used. Thalia Stavridis. I opened it with cold fingers. Helena, dear, Alexandros tells me you've been traveling. How fortunate. I've invited a young colleague from our Athens office to join us for Christmas, Dimitra something, PR department. She's been working so hard, and I thought she deserved some holiday cheer. No. Family should be together for the holidays, all of us. See you soon, dear. I sat on the edge of the bed. The same bed where I'd found Alexandros' phone 3 days ago. The same room where my life had started unraveling. Talia knew. Of course Talia knew. Talia knew everything. She'd known about Alexandros' infertility for decades. She'd known about my affair. She'd enabled it, because the family needed heirs, and I was the instrument. So why invite Dimitra to Christmas? Unless she didn't see Dimitra as a threat. Unless she saw her as a tool. I thought about the matriarch I'd married into. 78 years old. Widow of a man who'd humiliated her for 40 years. Survivor of a world that had tried to erase her. Talia Stavridis didn't make moves without purpose. She didn't invite PR executives to family Christmas out of holiday spirit. She was orchestrating something. I looked at my children's rooms down the hall. Doors closed, sleeping peacefully, unaware that their grandmother was assembling a chessboard with their legitimacy as the stakes. Tomorrow I would fly to Mykonos with them. Tomorrow I would walk into Talia's web with my eyes open. But I'd be damned if I'd walk in unarmed. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a number I hadn't called in years. A number saved under Wine Supplier Mendoza. Marco answered on the second ring. Helena? His voice, warm, Argentine, still carrying the weight of everything we'd been. Is everything all right? No. I stared at the ceiling, at the ancestral portraits, at the lie I'd built. I need you to come to Greece. I'll be there, he said. No questions, no hesitation. I know. December 22nd. The Stavridis family jet. I watched through the window as Mykonos rose from the Aegean, white buildings stacked like sugar cubes, the estate visible on the northern cliffs. The children pressed against the glass beside me, Sophia pointing at boats, Marcus asking if Yaya would have presents. Leo already asleep in his car seat, clutching a stuffed elephant. I could have stopped this. I could have refused to come, taken the children to a hotel, called lawyers, burned the whole structure down in flames. But burning meant exposure. Exposure meant DNA tests. DNA tests meant losing everything I'd built for them. So I landed. I smiled. I walked my children off the jet into the Mediterranean winter sun. The estate car was waiting. 20 minutes later, we pulled through iron gates older than the American Republic. The house rose before us, whitewashed. Stone, blue shutters, bougainvillea, dormant but clinging. A palace masquerading as a home. The children were out of the car before the driver killed the engine. They ran toward the front doors, toward Thalia, who stood waiting in the entrance, black cashmere, silver hair, the family emerald ring glinting on her finger. She embraced them one by one. Sophia, Marcus. Leo lifted from his car seat and pressed against her chest. She smiled at each of them with the warmth of a grandmother who adored her grandchildren. But her eyes found mine over Leo's shoulder. And in that look, I saw everything. She knew about Dimitra. She knew about the pregnancy. She probably knew about my children too, had known for years. And she was smiling. Because whatever happened next, she was in control. "Helena, darling." She set Leo down and walked toward me. "Welcome home." She kissed both my cheeks. Her lips were cold. "I'm so glad the whole family could be together for Christmas." I watched my children disappear into her house, into her world, into the trap I'd walked them into with my eyes open. The cage had closed, and I was inside it. The Stavridis estate had been preparing for Christmas since October. I knew this because the housekeeper told me, proudly, as if I cared, while showing me to my room. Our room. The room I'd share with Alexandros for the next 10 days. The suite was on the second floor, facing the Aegean. White walls, blue shutters, linen bedding that cost more than my mother's funeral. A private terrace where I could watch the sea and pretend I wasn't drowning. I unpacked while the children explored. Their laughter echoed through stone hallways. Innocent sounds in a house full of calculated silences. By evening, the family had assembled. The great hall was transformed. A 15-foot pine tree dominated the center, draped in crystal ornaments that had been in the family for generations. Eucalyptus garlands wound up the marble staircase. Candles flickered in every window, hundreds of them, a fire marshal's nightmare wrapped in tradition. 23 relatives, cousins from Athens, uncles from Thessaloniki, an aunt from London who'd married poorly and was tolerated anyway. They moved through the room like elegant chess pieces, air-kissing, champagne-sipping, assessing, and watching. I felt it the moment I descended the stairs. The way conversations paused when I passed. The way eyes lingered on my children a beat too long. The way Talia smiled at me from across the room, serene, knowing, waiting. "Mama, come see what Yaya put under the tree." Leo grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the presents, mountains of them, wrapped in gold and silver, each tagged with names in Talia's elegant script. My children's names, Stavridis' names. I smiled for them, the way mothers do when their hearts are breaking. Then I saw Nikos, 26 years old, Alexandros' nephew, son of his late brother, next in line if anything happened to the heirs. He stood by the fireplace with a whiskey, watching my children unwrap a small gift Talia had approved for Christmas Eve. His eyes moved from Sophia to Marcus to Leo, then to me, then back to the children. He was calculating. I knew that look. I'd worn it myself in Athens, studying Dimitra's apartment for weaknesses. Nikos was looking at my children and seeing something, an inconsistency, a question worth asking. "Helena." Alexandros appeared beside me, hand warm on my lower back. "Come. Mother wants to make a toast." Talia stood at the head of the room, emerald ring catching firelight, champagne raised. "To family," she said. Her voice carried the specific authority of a woman who had survived everything. "To legacy. To the next generation of Stavridis blood." She looked directly at me. "To my grandchildren. My heirs." Yamas. I raised my glass. I drank. I smiled. And I felt Nikos's eyes on me the entire time. December 23rd, Christmas Eve preparations. The estate operated like a machine. Staff appeared from nowhere, polishing silver, arranging flowers, pressing linens. The kitchen had been producing for days. Curabides dusted with powdered sugar, melomacarona glistening with honey, a lamb that would slow roast for 16 hours. I let myself be absorbed by it. Easier to focus on details than on the web closing around me. I helped Maria, the head housekeeper, fold napkins into elaborate roses. I supervised the children's outfits for church, Sophia in red velvet, Marcus in a tiny navy suit, Leo in the sweater Alexandros' grandmother had knitted 40 years ago. "Mama?" Sophia's voice was quiet, different from her usual chatter. I looked up. From buttoning Leo's collar. My oldest stood in the doorway of the children's suite, 10 years old, dark curls framing a face that was pure Marco. That face I loved and feared in equal measure. "What is it, sweetheart?" She came closer, sat on the bed beside me. Leo squirmed away to play with Marcus, leaving us in a bubble of sudden privacy. "Why does Yaya look at us like that?" My hands stilled. "Like what?" "Like..." Sophia chewed her lip. "Like she's checking something? Like we might be wrong." Children see everything. We forget that. We think our performances fool them, but they're watching from angles we don't consider. I pulled her close, smelled her shampoo, strawberry, American, the one she insisted on bringing from home. My daughter, Marco's daughter, the child whose existence proved my betrayal. "Yaya loves you," I said. "She just sees things we don't." It was the first honest thing I'd said in days. "What things?" "Things that happened before you were born. Complicated things." Sophia pulled back, searching my face with those too perceptive eyes. "Does she not want us here?" "She wants you here more than anything." "Because you're her insurance," I didn't say. "Because as long as you exist, the Stavridis name continues. Because your legitimacy is her project, and she'll protect it, and control it, with everything she has." "Come on." I stood, smoothing her hair. "Let's go see if your brothers have destroyed their suits yet." She smiled. The storm passed, for now. But as I watched her run to join Marcus and Leo, I felt the weight of what I'd built settling on my shoulders. Every moment they spent in this house, they absorbed its rules, its expectations, its version of who they were supposed to be. I'd given them a name, a fortune, a legacy. I'd just forgotten to ask if they wanted it. Melancholy, 4 seconds, fading. I found him in the library. December 23rd, late afternoon. The children were napping before church. Alexandros was on calls with the Athens office, because even Christmas Eve couldn't pause the empire. I'd been searching for a quiet corner when I heard pages turning. Nikos sat at the oak desk, surrounded by photographs. Not framed ones, loose prints, stacks of them spread across the surface like a genealogist's obsession. I recognized some: holiday gatherings, christenings, the children's birthday parties. Others were older: Alexandros as a young man, his brother, their father. He looked up when I entered, didn't bother hiding what he was doing. "Helena." His smile was a knife sheathed in courtesy. "Looking for a book?" "Looking for quiet." I didn't move from the doorway. "What are you doing?" "Family history." He gestured at the photographs. "I find it fascinating, don't you? The way traits pass down. Eye color, bone structure, the shape of a jaw. I'm sure your genealogy hobby is thrilling." "It is, actually." He leaned back. The late afternoon light caught his features, sharp, Mediterranean, unmistakably Stavridis. "Did you know my branch of the family has commissioned 3 genetic studies? We're very interested in heritage." My blood went cold, but I kept my face neutral. Is there something you're trying to say, Nikos? He stood, walked toward me slowly, holding one photograph. Your children are beautiful. He handed me the image, Sophia, Marcus, and Leo, at last year's Easter, standing beside Alexandros. They have your eyes, your mouth, your lovely bone structure. Children often resemble their mothers. Do they? He tilted his head. Because they don't resemble their father. At all. And I would know. I grew up studying Alexandros's face, wondering why he got everything and I got nothing.
Be careful, Nikos. I'm always careful, he smiled. It's how the spare survives. He moved past me toward the door, pausing just close enough to whisper, I've hired someone, a genealogist with discretion. Courier arrives tomorrow with her preliminary findings. He shrugged. Probably nothing. These things usually are. He left. I stood in the library alone, photograph in my hand, looking at my children's faces. At Marco's eyes staring back at me from 3 small bodies who didn't know they were evidence. Nikos didn't have proof. Not yet. But he was building a case. And I'd just learned I had less time than I thought. The cousins were calling the family to evening church. I dropped the photograph on the desk and went to perform another ritual. Midnight. December 23rd becoming December 24th. The house had finally quieted. Church was over. 2 hours of incense, chanting, candles passed from hand to hand. Alexandros was asleep, satisfied with his performance of patriarch. The children were dreaming in their room down the hall. I slipped out to the terrace. The Aegean stretched before me, black and infinite. Stars scattered above like someone had shattered a diamond against velvet. The estate sat behind me, lit windows, warmth, the gilded cage I'd chosen. I pulled out my phone. The number was still there from my call in New York. I'd given Marco the date, the location, the desperate plea to come. He'd said yes without hesitation. But I needed to hear his voice again. Needed to know I wasn't alone in this. He answered on the first ring. Helena. My name in his mouth. The Argentine accent wrapping around the syllables like something precious. 12 years, and my chest still tightened. Marco. I kept my voice low. I'm at the estate. Everything is complicated. I know. I heard him moving. Footsteps, a door closing. I'm in Athens. My flight landed 3 hours ago. You're already in Greece? You sounded scared on the phone. His voice gentled. I haven't heard you scared since before we met. I wasn't going to wait. There's a nephew, Nikos. He's investigating. He knows something is wrong with the children. And Alexandros' mother invited his mistress to Christmas, and I think... Stop. Marco's command was soft, but firm. We'll figure it out. I'll take a boat to Mykonos tomorrow afternoon. Meet me at the small dock on the north shore, the one we used to... He didn't finish. He didn't have to. The dock where we'd met secretly, years ago, when I was a new wife already regretting my choice. You could still leave, he said quietly. Tonight. Take the children. I have a lawyer in London who specializes in... I can't. The words scraped my throat. If I run, they investigate. If they investigate, they find the truth. The children lose everything. They'd have you. They'd have me. Would that be enough? Silence on the line. The question I'd been asking myself for 12 years. I don't know, Marco finally said. But I know it would be true. I stiffened. Footsteps somewhere behind me, staff probably, or a relative unable to sleep. I have to go. Tomorrow, North Dock, 3 o'clock. Tomorrow. I ended the call and stood in the dark, phone warm in my cold hand, staring at the sea that separated me from escape. Behind me was the life I'd built on lies. Ahead was a man I'd loved and left and used. I didn't know which choice would destroy us faster. Solo guitar, Argentine tango, silverware on porcelain, murmured conversation. December 24th, Christmas Eve dinner. The dining room had been transformed into something from a Renaissance painting. A 30-foot table draped in white linen, crystal stemware catching candlelight from 6 chandeliers, place cards in gold calligraphy. 23 family members arranged according to Talia's precise hierarchy. I was seated at Alexandros' right hand, the position of honor, the position of display. My dress was burgundy silk, Valentino, purchased for this occasion. My diamonds were borrowed from the family vault, as they were every Christmas. My smile was painted on with the precision of a master forger. The children sat at the far end, at the young people's table, with cousins and staff supervision. I could see Sophia helping Leo cut his lamb, Marcus laughing at something Nikos's younger brother said. Normal. Happy. Unaware. Talia presided from the head of the table, emerald ring glinting with every gesture. She'd dressed in black velvet tonight. Mourning colors, I thought. Or perhaps victory colors. Hard to tell with her. Before we continue, Talia rose. The room fell silent. I want to take a moment to reflect on what this night means. I set down my fork. Christmas is about family, about the ties that bind us, not by choice, but by blood. The Stavridis line has endured for generations because we understand that legacy is not given. It is built. Carefully. Deliberately. Her eyes found mine across the candlelight. Some of the most beautiful families are the ones we choose to construct. She raised her glass. To the family we choose to build. To the sacrifices that make it possible. And to the women who understand what survival requires. I raised my glass. My hand trembled. Barely, imperceptibly, but I felt it. The wine touched my lips. I made myself swallow. Across the table, Nikos watched me with predator's patience. The dinner continued. 7 courses, 3 hours, an eternity of smiling while knives sharpened in every shadow. Alexandros was oblivious, as always. He told shipping anecdotes. He laughed at his uncle's jokes. He touched my hand across the table with the affection of a man who believed his wife loved him. Maybe I did, in my way. Maybe love was just another lie I'd learned to perform. By dessert, my jaw ached from smiling. My feet ached from the heels I couldn't remove. My soul ached from the woman I'd become to survive this family. I looked at my children one more time. Sophia, Marcus, Leo. 3 reasons to keep performing. 3 reasons to never stop lying. 3 reasons to meet Marco at the dock tomorrow and consider burning it all down. December 24th, 3:07 p.m., the North Dock. I told Alexandros I needed a walk, told myself I was just meeting an old friend, told the universe I had a plan. I was lying to everyone, including myself. The dock was hidden from the main estate by a rocky outcropping, a private boat slip the family used for small craft and secret departures. I'd come here before, years ago, when Marco and I. The boat appeared around the headland. White hull, modest size, not a billionaire's yacht, a working vessel, practical, Argentine. Like him. He stepped off the bow, and 12 years collapsed. Marco Alonso, at 42. Dark, curling hair now threaded with silver, jaw that still defied reason, eyes that still crinkled before he smiled. He was wearing jeans and a fisherman's sweater. No pretension, no performance. Just Marco. He walked toward me. I didn't move, couldn't. Helena. He stopped a foot away, close enough to touch, close enough to smell, salt air and wine country and something unmistakably him. You came. I told you I would. He studied my face. You look exhausted. I look like a woman who hasn't slept in 6 days. You look like a woman who needs to stop running. His hand rose, slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, he cupped my cheek, warm palm against cold skin. The first physical contact in 12 years. I didn't pull away. I've seen the estate, he said quietly. From the boat, the size of it, the weight. It's a prison, I heard myself say. A beautiful prison. Then leave it. His thumb traced my cheekbone. Tonight. The children are young enough to adjust. I have lawyers, money, enough to fight them. And tell them what? That their entire life is a lie. That their mother loved them enough to give them the truth. I stepped back. His hand fell. They'd lose everything. The name, the inheritance, the position. They'd spend their lives being the illegitimate ones. The children whose mother whored herself for money. That's exactly what they'd say. I wrapped my arms around myself. That's exactly what Thalia would make sure everyone believed. Marco looked at the estate behind me, at the white walls and blue shutters and centuries of accumulated power. They'd survive, he said softly. You'd survive. Would I? The question hung between us. The only honest question I'd asked in years. I stiffened. Someone was coming. Tomorrow, I said quickly. Stay in the village. There's a hotel, the Aegean Blue. I'll come when I can. Helena, please. My voice cracked. I need time. One more day. He nodded, stepped back onto the boat. The engine started. I watched him go until the boat disappeared around the headland. Then I turned back toward the prison I'd chosen. December 25th, Christmas morning. The great hall was chaos, the beautiful kind. 3 children in matching pajamas tearing through gifts with the velocity of pure joy. Cousins shrieking, adults clutching coffee. Alexandros on the floor with Leo, helping him unwrap a toy boat. For 1 hour, I let myself forget. Sophia held up a velvet box containing pearl earrings, just like Mama's. Marcus examined a leather-bound book of Greek mythology with his name embossed on the cover. Leo crashed his boat into Marcus's knee and giggled when his brother pretended to be wounded. Then Alexandros stood. Now, he clapped his hands, commanding attention. The family gifts. He walked to the tree and retrieved 3 boxes, larger, wrapped in gold paper, tied with the Stavridis ribbon. I knew what was coming. Sophia, he handed her the first box. Your great-grandmother's christening cross, worn by every Stavridis firstborn for 4 generations. Sophia opened it. A Byzantine cross, gold and ancient, nestled in blue velvet. Her eyes went wide. Marcus. The second box. Your great-grandfather's compass. He used it when he captained his first ship at 19. Marcus held the brass instrument like it was made of glass. And Leo. The smallest box. Your namesake's signet ring. Too big for you now, but one day. Leo peered at the heavy gold ring inside. then looked up at his father with absolute trust. "Am I a Stavridis?" he asked. The innocent question of a 4-year-old trying to understand his place. "Of course you are." Alexandros ruffled his hair. "You're my son, my blood." Sharp intake of breath, covered by reaching for coffee cup. I watched my children hold heirlooms from a bloodline that wasn't theirs. Artifacts of a family they'd been grafted onto without consent. Objects that would someday, if Nikos had his way, be reclaimed as stolen. They didn't know. How could they know? They just knew they were loved, that Papa gave them treasures, that Yaya smiled and nodded and looked at me with something that might have been warning or might have been victory. Was I protecting them? Or burying them in a lie so deep they'd never dig free? "Mama!" Leo stood before me, something clutched in his hands. Not a wrapped gift, paper folded unevenly, decorated with crayon. "I made this for you." He handed me the card, construction paper, red and green. A stick figure family, 5 people holding hands. Beneath it, in the wobbly letters of a 4-year-old, "To the best mommy. Love, your son." My composure nearly shattered. The card trembled in my hands. This was real. The heirlooms were performance, but this was love. Unearned, unconditional, given freely by a child who didn't know the difference between biological truth and the mother who held him. I pulled him close, buried my face in his hair. "I love you too, more than you'll ever know." Christmas Day, 1:15 p.m. Lunch preparations. The family had gathered in the formal dining room when the front door opened. I heard her before I saw her. Heels on marble, the specific rhythm of a woman who'd rehearsed her entrance. Then voices, confused staff, a maid protesting, someone calling for Thalia. Dimitra walked into the dining room wearing white. White, among us in Christmas red, the only color in a room of blood. 23 heads turned. Alexandros went pale. Thalia went very, very still. "Dimitra." Alexandros's voice cracked. "What are you?" "Merry Christmas, everyone." She smiled, bright, desperate, unhinged. "I was told family should be together for the holidays." "Who is that?" Chaos. Alexandros rising, demanding she leave, aunts clutching pearls, uncles herding children toward the door. And through it all, Thalia watching with the patience of a woman who'd expected exactly this. I stood frozen, watching my careful world detonate. The confrontation moved to the study. Alexandros, Dimitra, Thalia, and, because I refused to be excluded, me. Door locked, voices raised. "She's your mistress?" I performed shock. 3 years, and you never— "Helena, I can explain." "He promised me marriage." Dimitra's composure cracked. "He said he'd leave you. He said the baby—" "Enough!" Alexandros's roar silenced everyone. He stood behind his father's desk, shaking, a man whose carefully compartmentalized life had just exploded. Thalia spoke. "Everyone out." Her voice was ice. "I'll handle this. Alexandros, take a walk. Helena, I'll speak with you later. Dimitra, stay." The study door closed behind me. I heard nothing through the wood. The room was soundproofed, of course. Later, 7 p.m. The terrace. The dinner had been canceled. Children sent to their rooms with trays. Adults scattered to process. I stood on the terrace watching the sun set over the Aegean when I heard footsteps. "Dimitra." She stood beside me, holding a whiskey she'd clearly stolen from Alexandros's study. Her white dress was rumpled now, her makeup smeared, her performance over.
She knows everything.
Dimitra's voice was hollow.
Talia. She's known for years.
I'm aware. Dimitra took a long drink, then turned to me.
I took a DNA test in Athens before I came.
And?
The baby isn't his.
She laughed, bitter, broken.
It's my Athenian lover's. I was hoping, praying it was Alexandros's so I'd have leverage. But it's not. It's Georgos's. Some married professor from the university who'll never leave his wife.
I stared at her.
You were going to pass off another man's child as Alexandros's? Yes.
She met my eyes. No shame left.
Exactly like
you did.
The mirror I'd been avoiding since Athens, right in front of me. We're the same, aren't we?
Dimitra's voice cracked.
Two women using our bodies to survive. Two women lying to the same man. Two women trapped by the same family. No, I've been doing this longer.
But my voice wavered, because she was right. The only difference between us was timing, and 12 years of successful deception. Later that night, 10 p.m., I couldn't sleep. The children were finally down, confused, upset, asking questions I couldn't answer. Alexandros had locked himself in the study with scotch. Dimitra was in a guest room somewhere, waiting for Talia's verdict. I paced the hallway like a ghost in my own life. That's when I saw them. Through the cracked door of Talia's private sitting room, Nikos, standing over his grandmother's chair, documents in hand. His voice low but sharp. I pressed myself against the wall, listened. Courier arrived this afternoon, before the chaos. The genealogist confirms it. My blood went cold. Dahlia's voice, calm as winter.
Confirms what, exactly?
Genetic inconsistencies. The children don't share Alexandros's paternal markers. They can't be his biological. Enough! A silence. Then Thalia spoke again, softer but no less dangerous.
You've been investigating your cousin's children, your own family. For what purpose?
For truth. Nikos's voice cracked with decades of resentment. For the acknowledgement that the heirs you parade around are frauds. That I am the actual remaining bloodline. That when Alexandros dies,
Alexandros is not dying.
Everyone dies. And when he does, those children inherit everything. Billions, the company, the legacy. Children who aren't even...
Sit down, Nikos.
Movement. Chair creaking. Thalia's voice became something I hadn't heard before. Negotiation.
You want power, acknowledgement, a seat at the table instead of the children's corner.
I want what I deserve.
Then you'll have it.
Thalia paused.
But not like this. Not by destroying the family in public. Not by handing our shame to lawyers and journalists.
What are you proposing?
Silence. For now. Let me handle the Dimitra situation and the larger complications. In exchange, when Alexandros passes, not soon, God willing, you join the board. Full voting rights, access to the trusts.
And if I refuse? If I take this to Alexandros himself?
Then you discover that I've been protecting this family for 50 years, and I know secrets about every branch, including yours, including your father's, including things that would make your genealogist's report look like a parking ticket. When Nikos
spoke again, his voice was smaller.
Fine, we'll do it your way. For now.
Smart boy. Thalia's chair creaked as she rose. Now leave me. I have a chapel visit to prepare. Nikos passed within 3 feet of me. Didn't notice. Too consumed with whatever deal he'd just made with the devil. I waited until his footsteps faded. Then I ran to my room and locked the door. Dalia was summoning people to the chapel, and I was next. The text came at 11:45 p.m. The chapel, midnight. Both of you. Both of you. I stared at the message, at the 3 words that meant Thalia was done playing. I dressed in the dark, black cashmere, flat shoes, the kind of clothes you wear when you're not sure if you're walking into a negotiation or an execution. Alexandros snored behind me, oblivious. The children slept down the hall, dreaming of their new treasures. I left them all, walked toward whatever Thalia had prepared. The estate chapel sat at the edge of the property, a small Greek Orthodox structure built by Alexandros' great-grandfather. Whitewashed walls, blue dome, icons older than the Republic. During the day, it was beautiful. At midnight, it looked like a tomb. Candles flickered in every window. The door was ajar. I pushed it open. The interior was all gold and shadow. Icons stared from every wall, saints and Madonnas and Christ in judgment, all watching, all silent. Candles lined the altar, the steps, the narrow pews. Hundreds of flames casting the room in amber and black. Thalia sat at the front, facing the altar. Black velvet robe, silver hair loose for once, the emerald ring glinting on her folded hands. Beside her, a small table. Wine, documents, a fountain pen. And in the front pew, already seated, Dimitra. She looked up when I entered. Her face was blank, the specific blankness of a woman who'd already surrendered. I walked down the aisle like a bride, toward a ceremony I hadn't agreed to. Helena. Talia didn't turn. Sit beside Dimitra. We have much to discuss. I sat. The wooden pew was cold. The icons watched. The candles flickered. Talia rose, turned to face us. She looked like God, or the devil. Hard to tell the difference in candlelight. 2 women, she said, both pregnant by other men, both lying to my son, both dependent on this family for everything you have. You've met each other. You've threatened each other. You've discovered your mirrors. Talia's lips curved, not quite a smile. Now you'll learn what I've always known, that this family, this empire, was not built on blood. It was built on lies. Careful, necessary lies. Lies I've been managing for 50 years. She picked up the documents from the table. And now you'll both sign your names to them. What are those? The terms of your survival. Thalia walked toward us, documents in hand. Read them carefully. Then decide what you're willing to pay to keep what you've built. She handed 1 copy to Dimitra, 1 to me. The chapel was silent. The icons stared. The candles burned. And I began to read the price of everything I'd done. The documents were heavy in my hands. 37 pages. Legal language dense as granite. I skimmed the headers while Talia watched. Trust amendment, guardianship provisions, educational authority, medical decision rights, financial oversight. I stopped at the last page. A signature line. My name printed beneath it in cold serif font. Beside me, Dimitra turned pages with shaking hands. Her white dress looked gray now in the candlelight. Everything looked gray. Before you read further, Talia said, let me save you some time. She walked to the altar, picked up the wine, poured 3 glasses with the precision of a woman who'd performed rituals like this before. I know everything. I know you've been sleeping with my son for 3 years, Dimitra. I know you're pregnant. And I know," she handed a glass to Dimitra with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "that the child isn't his." Dimitra's sharp intake of breath. Dimitra's composure shattered. "How?" "I had you tested 3 months ago. A strand of hair from your Athens apartment, not difficult to acquire when one employs your cleaning service." Talia sipped her wine. "The paternity was inconsistent with my son's genetic profile, which, as Helena knows, is quite distinctive." She was watching. She'd been watching the whole time. "You thought you had leverage." Talia's voice was almost gentle. "You thought pregnancy would force his hand. But you were never a threat, dear. Just a complication I allowed to continue for my own purposes." Dimitra stood. Her chair scraped stone. "You—" "Sit down." The command was quiet, absolute. Dimitra sat. I watched the woman who'd been threatening to destroy my life crumble in real time. The pregnancy she'd pinned everything on, worthless. The blackmail she'd planned, diffused before it began. "Now," Thalia turned to me. "Helena, shall we discuss what I know about you?" I set down the documents. I met her eyes, and I waited for the blade I'd known was coming for 12 years. "I learned of Alexandros' infertility when he was 28. Thalia spoke like she was reciting history, detached, clinical. "He was engaged to a girl from a shipping family. Appropriate match, good bloodlines. The doctors found the issue during routine premarital testing. I dismissed the engagement, paid for silence. Alexandros never knew. For 10 years, I managed his situation. Introduced him to women who wouldn't require children, steered him away from those who would. He was happy enough, building the company, playing at power. And then I found you." The words landed like a fist. "Christie's, Greek Antiquities Department, Helena Castellanos, motherless, ambitious, fluent in our language, hungry for a life she could taste but not touch." Talia smiled. "I sent Alexandros to authenticate a collection. I knew what would happen." "You arranged us." "I introduced you. What happened next was human nature." She sipped her wine. "You wanted security. He wanted beauty. You both wanted to escape something. I simply aligned the trajectories." I stood, the documents scattered from my lap. "You're saying our entire marriage is real. Love is real. Children are real." Talia's voice hardened. "The circumstances of introduction are irrelevant. What matters is what you built. And when the building required materials I couldn't provide through conventional means, I adapted." "Marco." "Ah," Talia nodded. "The Argentine. Yes. I suspected within months of your marriage, your cycles aligned poorly with your husband's travel schedule. And when you became pregnant with Sophia," she shrugged, "the timing was mathematically unlikely." "You knew from the beginning." "I suspected. I confirmed after Marcus was born, another discrete DNA test. By then, it didn't matter." She set down her wine. "You had given my son what he could never give himself. 3 healthy children, a legacy, a family he believed was his. You let me have an affair. I let you give my son the children he was too proud to adopt." The chapel swam. Icons blurred. I grabbed the pew for balance. Every choice I thought I'd made, every desperate calculation, Every secret I'd carried for 12 years. She'd been ahead of me. Always. Watching me build a lie inside her blueprint. I'm not a monster, Helena. Talia's voice softened, or performed softness. I protected my son. I protected you. I protected the children. For 12 years, I've kept this family intact while you played wife and Marco played whatever he plays. But protection has a price, and now you'll pay it. The terms are simple. Talia gathered the scattered pages, placed them on the altar like an offering. Dimitra receives $5 million, wire transfer, immediate. She relocates to London, Paris, wherever ambitious young women reinvent themselves. She signs an NDA. She disappears. Dimitra, still seated, still gray, nodded once. She'd stopped fighting. In exchange for her silence, the pregnancy resolves itself. However she chooses. The Stavridis name never appears on any birth certificate. And me? You, Helena, remain exactly what you are. Wife, mother, society fixture. Alexandros never learns the truth about his children. The DNA tests remain buried. Your family stays intact. That sounds like protection. It is protection, Thalia smiled. Protection has terms. She picked up the documents, handed them back to me. I read them properly this time. Trust Fund Management Authority. Thalia gains sole control of all trusts established for Sophia, Marcus, and Leo. $200 million. Currently held in their names until age 30. Under these terms, controlled by Thalia until age 40. Educational decision rights. All schooling choices, primary, secondary, university, require Thalia's approval. Boarding school, country of study, field of concentration. Her decision. Matrimonial consent clause. Any marriage by any child before age 30 requires Thalia's written approval. Marriages without approval trigger trust forfeiture. Medical decision authority. Major medical decisions for minors made in consultation with Talia. For adults, trust fund access conditional on following family health protocols. She wasn't protecting my children. She was buying them. This is control, I said. My voice was flat, dead. Total control. Until they're 40 years old. This is governance. Talia's voice remained pleasant. I built this dynasty. I protected it when your affair could have destroyed it. I kept silent when DNA tests could have stripped your children of everything. Now the dynasty protects itself. Through me. And if I refuse? Then Nikos receives the genealogist's report. Alexandros receives an anonymous tip. Your children receive the truth about their parentage at the most damaging possible moment. She shrugged. I imagine custody proceedings would be educational. You'd destroy them to control them. I'd destroy you to control them. There's a difference. She picked up the fountain pen, held it out. Sign, Helena. Protect what you built. Accept that protection has a price. When the cage you built to protect your children becomes the cage that imprisons them, who are you really protecting? I looked at the pen, at the documents, at the woman who had orchestrated my entire existence. I told her I needed time. She gave me until morning. Don't take too long. Talia's voice followed me out. The children wake early on the day after Christmas. They'll want to know what's wrong with Mama's eyes. Talia left us alone. 2 women in the wreckage. Dimitra hadn't moved from her pew. The white dress pooled around her like a surrender flag. I should have left. Should have gone to Marco, to the children, to anywhere that wasn't this stone tomb filled with candle smoke and broken leverage. Instead, I sat beside her. She knew the whole time. Dimitra's voice was hollow, empty. 3 years of planning. 3 years of waiting for him to choose me. And she was just watching. She's always watching. I thought the baby would change everything. A laugh, bitter, broken. I thought if I could just give him something his wife couldn't. His wife did the same thing. Dimitra turned, looked at me properly for the first time since the chapel door closed. I told her everything. Marco, 12 years ago, 3 children. The same lie you were planning to tell, I told.
It first, and got away with it. You were smarter, she said. Or luckier. I was earlier, that's all. I stared at the icons on the wall. Saints who'd seen 1,000 confessions and absolved none of them. Timing is the only difference between a founder and a fraud. Dimitra was quiet. Then, I wanted to be you. The words landed like a stone in still water. Not destroy you, be you. Wife, mother, legitimate. Someone who mattered enough to introduce at parties. Someone whose children had his name. My father had another family, she continued. His real family, in Thessaloniki. When he died, they took everything. I was just the Athens mistake. Her voice cracked. I swore I'd never be invisible like my mother. I'd make someone choose me. And instead, you're becoming him. She flinched. Abandoning one family for another that doesn't want you. Lying about paternity, too. Secure a position. Using a child as leverage. I said it without cruelty, just observation. You're not becoming your mother, Dimitra. You're becoming your father. She stared at me, then covered her face with her hands. I'm going to take her money. Her voice was muffled, broken. The 5 million, the NDA, London, all of it. I know. And I'm going to hate myself for it. She dropped her hands. Mascara tracked down her cheeks like dark rivers. Just like you. Just like me. We sat in silence. 2 women who'd made the same choices for the same reasons. One had won. One had lost. Neither had escaped. Good luck, Helena. She stood, walked toward the door, didn't look back. I didn't wish her the same. I wasn't sure luck existed anymore. Terrace, door, cold wind, 3 a.m., silence. I found him where I knew he'd be. Marco stood at the terrace railing, staring at black water. The Aegean at 3 a.m., no moonlight, no stars, just void. He turned when he heard me. His face changed. He'd seen something in mine. Helena. He stepped toward me. What happened? I told him. All of it. Talia's architecture, the arranged meeting at Christie's, the suspected affair she'd allowed, the DNA tests she'd buried, the documents waiting for my signature. She let you. Marco's voice was flat. She let you come to me. She let you. She used me. She used us. She used our children to build a dynasty her son couldn't build himself. Then leave. He grabbed my hands, cold fingers meeting cold fingers. Leave, tonight, right now. The boat is still at the village dock. We take the children. And go where? Argentina. The vineyard. I have lawyers, money,
a life that doesn't require permission from a 78-year-old puppet master. I ran the calculations while he held my hands. Custody battle. Alexandros would fight. He loves them, whatever biology says. His lawyers versus Marcos. Greek courts, where the Stavridis name carries weight. DNA exposure. If it goes to court, paternity gets tested. The children learn the truth, not from me, in time, with context, but from lawyers, in depositions, as evidence. Legitimacy destroyed. They lose the name, the trusts, the heirlooms, the identity they've built for 10 years, 7 years, 4 years. They'd have us. Would that be enough? I met his eyes. Would waking up in Argentina, not knowing who their father really is, not understanding why their whole life evaporated, would that be enough? It would be true. True isn't the same as survivable. Marco's hands dropped. I watched him understand. Watched 12 years of hope finally drain from his eyes. You're going to sign her documents. I'm going to protect my children. By selling them to her. By giving them the life they know. The stability, the identity, everything I sacrificed to build for them. Everything you sacrificed. His voice broke slightly. Us. You sacrificed us. I know. The wind cut between us. I could smell salt and the specific coldness of December over water. If I leave, I lose everything I sold my soul to get. I said it to the sea, not to him. And maybe that's what I deserve. But the children don't. They didn't choose this. They didn't lie. They just exist in a life I built for them. And you'll spend the rest of your existence in a cage. I've been in a cage for 12 years. At least this one has a key I understand. Marco stepping back, footsteps on. Goodbye, Helena. I didn't turn around. I couldn't watch him leave again. I walked back through the estate in pre-dawn gray. The house was silent. Staff wouldn't stir for another hour. The children slept. Alexandros slept. Everyone slept, except the 3 women who'd just carved up a dynasty in a chapel. The hallway was long. Portraits watched from both walls. Stavridis' ancestors in gilt frames, men with strong jaws and dark eyes. None of them looked like my children. Footsteps behind me. I turned. He stood at the end of the corridor, rumpled, sleepless, still wearing yesterday's shirt. Helena? Nikos. He walked toward me slowly, stopped an arm's length away. I saw Dimitra leave an hour ago. His voice was quiet, observational. Town car. Luggage. She looked finished. She's going to London. I assumed as much. He tilted his head. And you? What about me? Are you going anywhere? Or has grandmother made you an offer you can't refuse? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? He smiled. Not cruel, exactly. Knowing. The smile of a man who's been watching the game from the stands. She met with me, too, last night, before the chapel. What did she offer you? A seat on the board. When Uncle Alexandros dies, not soon, she emphasized. Eventually. Voting rights, trust fund access, the position my father should have had. And the price? Silence. The genealogist's report disappears. I never mention my observations about your children's paternity. I become a good nephew, a loyal family member, a Stavridis who understands how the game is played. He stepped closer. We're all in the web now. You, me, Dimitra, wherever she lands. Everyone who knows anything has been bought, threatened, or both. And you're fine with that? I'm realistic about it, he shrugged. I spent 26 years as the spare, the afterthought, the heir in waiting who was never actually going to inherit because Uncle Alexandros's miracle children existed. His eyes hardened. Now I know those miracles are frauds, and I'll still never inherit, because the fraud is better protected than the truth. Welcome to the family, cousin. He passed me in the hallway. His shoulder brushed mine. Properly, this time. I stood in the portrait corridor alone, surrounded by ancestors who weren't watching my children's ancestors, surrounded by a conspiracy that now included everyone except the man it was designed to protect. Alexandros would wake in an hour. He'd kiss my cheek. He'd ask if I slept well. And I would lie to him, like I'd been lying for 12 years. Only now, everyone else would be lying too. I went back to the chapel. Not to pray. I'd given that up years ago. I went back to read. The candles had burned to stubs. Gray dawn light seeped through the narrow windows, turning the icons into flat shapes. No gold anymore, just paint. The documents lay where Talia had left them. Altar, fountain pen, wine glasses still half full. I sat in the front pew, and I read every page. Article 7, Section 3, Educational Authority. All decisions regarding the education of the grandchildren, including but not limited to choice of institution, location of study, course of instruction, and extracurricular activities, shall require the prior written consent of the trustee. Sophia wants to be a marine biologist. She told me last
month. Excited, hopeful, the kind of dream 10-year-olds have before they learn dreams cost money. Under these terms, Thalia decides if she can pursue it. Article 12, Section 1, Matrimonial Consent. No grandchild shall enter into marriage before the age of 30 without the prior written consent of the trustee. Marriages entered into without such consent shall result in immediate forfeiture of trust fund access. Marcus is 7. He doesn't know what marriage means, but if he falls in love at 25 with someone Thalia doesn't approve of, he loses everything. Article 15, Section 4, Residency Requirements. Grandchildren shall maintain primary residency within approved jurisdictions: Greece, United Kingdom, United States, Eastern Seaboard, unless otherwise authorized by the trustee. Leo is 4. He can't even spell residency. But if he grows up and wants to live in Tokyo, Buenos Aires, anywhere Thalia can't control, he's cut off. From my hands. I saw it clearly now. Every clause, every provision, every carefully worded shackle. I wasn't protecting my children. I was selling them, trading their futures for their presents, giving Thalia 40 years of control so I could keep 12 years of lies intact. You made me into you. I said it to the empty chapel, to the icons, to the woman who wasn't there to hear it. And I didn't even notice. When you've spent 12 years building a life on lies, at what point did you stop being a survivor and become the thing you were surviving against? I stood, walked to the altar, picked up the fountain pen. My signature would mean security, stability, the life they knew, protected, the truth about their father, buried. It would also mean becoming Thalia, not in 40 years, now, today, the moment ink touched paper. The pen was heavy in my hand. The documents waited. I thought about my mother. Queens, 3 jobs. Dying at 54 because she couldn't afford the care that might have saved her. I thought about Sophia asking why Yaya looks at her funny. I thought about Marco, already miles across black water,
carrying the love I was about to bury forever. And I thought about the woman I'd been when I walked into Christie's at 25, hungry, ambitious, desperate to never be disposable. She wouldn't recognize me now. I wasn't sure I recognized her either.
Subscribe now to see what Alexandros does when he finally looks at that portrait, and discover how another dynasty crumbles in our next tale. The bell icon means you won't miss what's coming. December 26th, 6:47 a.m. I left the chapel with the documents unsigned, walked back through the estate like a ghost returning to her haunt. The house was silent. Staff wouldn't stir for another hour. The children slept in their rooms, dreaming of Christmas gifts and cousins and the grandfather who would give them anything they asked. Alexandros slept beside me. I stood in the bedroom doorway watching him. The man I'd married for safety. The man whose children I'd given him through another man's body. The man who believed, with absolute certainty, that his legacy was secure. He looked peaceful. Men who don't know they've been betrayed always do. I walked to his side of the bed, sat on the edge. The mattress dipped slightly, that expensive Swedish engineering that absorbed weight without complaint. His face was slack in sleep. Silver gray hair against white pillow. The strong jaw that my children did inherit. The dark eyes, closed now, that would never see what I saw when I looked at them. I tried to remember if I'd ever loved him. Not wanted him, not needed him, not calculated that he was my best option for survival, but loved him. The way I'd loved Marco during those 3 weeks in Buenos Aires. The way you love someone when you have nothing to gain. I couldn't remember. Maybe I never had. But something had grown in 12 years. Something that wasn't love, but wasn't nothing. A tenderness born of shared meals and shared children and shared lies. The specific intimacy of two people who'd built a life together, even if one of them didn't know what it was built on. I reached out, touched his face. His skin was warm, slightly rough with morning stubble. Real, human. The man I'd used and protected and deceived for more than a decade. You deserved a wife who loved you. He didn't stir. I'm sorry I was never her. I stood up, walked to the window, watched the Aegean turn from black to gray to the first pale gold of morning. Somewhere out there, Marco was on a boat heading to Athens. Dimitra was in a car heading to the airport, both of them leaving with pieces of my truth. And I was staying, with all of my lies. The documents were still in the chapel. Talia was still waiting. And the children would wake soon, wanting breakfast, wanting normal, wanting the mother they believed I was. I had maybe an hour to decide who I was going to be for the rest of my life. The library smelled like old leather and older money. Talia was waiting. She'd changed into charcoal wool, the uniform of a woman conducting business. The family. Attorney stood by the window, a witness who would never speak of what he witnessed. The documents lay on the mahogany desk, 37 pages. My children's futures, itemized and claused into submission. You've decided. Talia's voice was neutral, statement, not question. I've decided. I walked to the desk, picked up the fountain pen, the same pen I'd held in the chapel at midnight, the same weight, the same cold metal. But it felt different now, heavier, final. I read the first page again. Trust Fund Management Authority. Sophia, Marcus, Leo. Their names printed in clean serif font, their futures reduced to provisions and subclauses. Second thoughts? No, just seeing it clearly.
Clarity is a gift. Talia moved to stand beside me. Most people never achieve it. They tell themselves stories about choice and freedom, never understanding that all of us, every one of us, operates within constraints. The only question is whether you choose your cage or let someone choose it for you. I signed the first page, then the second, then all 37. My signature, Helena Stavridis, repeated over and over, each one a lock clicking shut, each one a bar on a window I'd never open. When it was done, the attorney gathered the documents, nodded once to Talia, left without speaking. We were alone. Talia turned to me. Her expression was unreadable. Triumph, perhaps, or something like respect. You made the right choice. Did I? You made the only choice. She reached up and touched her own hand. The emerald ring, the one she'd worn for 50 years, the one that had terrified every Stavridis daughter-in-law who'd ever stood in this library. My mother-in-law gave me this the day I signed similar documents. I hated her for it. Then I understood. She slid the ring off her finger and slid it onto mine. The emerald was cold, heavy. It fit perfectly, of course it did. Thalia would have had it sized. Welcome to the inner family, daughter. Her voice was almost warm now. Truly. I looked down at my hand. Alexandros' diamond, Thalia's emerald. 2 chains disguised as jewelry. I felt nothing. Maybe that was the point. December 31st, 11:47 p.m. The Stavridis' New Year's Eve gala had been a tradition for 80 years. 50 guests, champagne from the family vineyard, fireworks over the Aegean at midnight. I stood at the edge of the terrace in a gown that cost more than my mother earned in a year. Emerald silk, chosen, I now understood, to match the ring on my finger. Thalia's joke, or her test. I wasn't sure which. The estate blazed behind me. Crystal chandeliers, candlelight, women in designer dresses and men in bespoke tuxedos, all performing happiness for each other. I'd been performing for 6 days now, since the chapel, since the signature, since the ring. Every smile cost something. Every laugh took a piece of me I wouldn't get back. Every Happy New Year was a lie I told without moving my lips. But I was good at lies. 12 years of practice. There you are. He slipped an arm around my waist, kissed my temple. The husband who still believed his wife loved him. Almost midnight. Come inside for the toast. I let him lead me through the crowd, past Thalia, who nodded once, approving or warning. Past Nikos, who raised his glass with a smirk that said, "We're family now." Past the family portrait that hung above the fireplace, those painted children's eyes following me across the room. Everyone! Alexandros raised his champagne. The room quieted. To family. To legacy. To truth. I raised my glass. I said the words. To truth. Gold exploded over the Aegean. The room cheered. Alexandros pulled me close and kissed me as the clock struck midnight. I felt his lips on mine, tasted champagne and deception. Happy New Year, my love, he whispered. Happy New Year. I slipped away an hour later. Found the terrace empty now. Guests moved inside for dancing. The fireworks had ended, but smoke still drifted across the water, gray ghosts of gold. When you've spent your whole life surviving, at what point did you forget to live? I caught my reflection in the window. Emerald gown, diamond ring, emerald ring. Hair perfect, Makeup perfect, eyes completely empty. I didn't recognize the woman looking back. She had everything: the husband, the children, the estate, the name, the legacy. She had nothing. She had survived. That was supposed to matter. But surviving isn't living, and I wasn't sure anymore if I remembered the difference. 2 a.m., January 1st. The guests had finally gone. Staff cleared champagne flutes and swept confetti. The estate settled into the specific silence of celebration's aftermath. I checked on the children one last time. 3 rooms, 3 sleeping faces. Sophia curled around her pillow. Marcus sprawled across his bed like he'd fallen from a great height. Leo clutching the stuffed elephant he'd had since birth. I watched each of them breathe, in and out, in and out. The rhythm of lives I'd protected with everything I had. Thalia's emerald caught the hallway, light as I closed Leo's door. Heavy on my finger, cold against my skin. The weight of what I'd signed. I told myself it was worth it. Every lie, every sacrifice, every piece of myself I'd traded for their stability. I almost believed it. The bedroom was dark when I returned. Alexandros wasn't in bed. I heard him downstairs, in the library, moving. I didn't investigate. I was too tired, too empty, too finished with a day that had lasted 6 years. I lay down in the king bed alone, pulled the silk sheets to my chin, closed my eyes. Sleep came faster than I expected. The exhaustion of performance, the relief of surrender. I didn't know that downstairs, in the library, my husband was standing before the family portrait. The portrait hung above the fireplace. Commissioned last year. All 5 of us, Alexandros in the center, Helena beside him, the 3 children arranged before them like treasures on display. Alexandros stood before it now. Champagne still in hand, tuxedo loosened, the patriarch surveying his legacy. He'd looked at this portrait 1,000 times, walked past it, glanced at it, never really seen it. But something was different tonight. Maybe the champagne, maybe the angle of the dying firelight, maybe just the accumulation of small observations he'd been ignoring for years. He stepped closer, studied his own face in the painting, then Sophia's, then Marcus's, then Leo's. His brow furrowed. The children's eyes, lighter than his, warmer, shaped differently. The children's bone structure, softer than his, different angles, wrong proportions. The children's faces, looking back at him from the canvas, bearing absolutely no resemblance to the man who called himself their father. His hand rose, reached toward the canvas, toward the painted eyes of his youngest son. We'll never know what he saw in that moment, what pieces clicked into place, what questions formed in the champagne fog of New Year's morning. We'll never know if he looked at that portrait and finally understood what everyone else already knew. His hand stopped, 1 inch from the canvas. Frozen. Upstairs, I slept, dreaming of nothing, unaware that 12 years of careful construction was about to meet the match that would burn it down. The portrait waited. The truth waited. And Alexandros Stavridis, the man I'd deceived since the day we met, was finally starting to look. I stood on the terrace as the last guests left, watched their headlights disappear down the mountain road, listened to the wind and the waves, and the nothing that came after. I told myself I won. I kept my children, I kept my marriage, I kept the name, the estate, the legacy. I checked on them one last time, watched each of them breathe. Sophia, Marcus, Leo. 3 lives I'd protected with everything I had. 3 lives that would never know what I traded for their peace. I went to bed alone. Alexandros was downstairs, moving through the library. I didn't investigate. I was too tired to prevent what was coming. I just didn't keep myself. And the man I deceived for 12 years was about to start looking. This is American Billionaire Tales, where fortune meets fate. I'm Michael. And in this world of silk and secrets, the lies we tell to survive are the same lies that bury us. If this story haunted you, if you felt the weight of choices that can't be undone, then you understand what we do here. Subscribe now. Share this with someone who needs to feel something real. Because another empire is waiting, another family is hiding, another truth is about to surface. And when it does, you'll want to be here.